All right, so I'm sitting here with Chris Odom once again, founder of Black Community of Portland, and we're continuing our conversation about why we're up here in Portland and trying to support the Black voices, to amplify the Black voices, and also to support the Black community outreach in Portland. So, where we left off was some of the work that you're actually doing, which is delivering the food boxes every Thursday. So, number one, again, we need bodies. We need human bodies to be here to show up that can sit there and lift these boxes, load them up in your car, and going to deliver them to the families. That is physical, heavy work. And if we did not come with the few people we had, I think you would have been there the whole day doing this yourself.
Oh yeah, it gets that way sometimes. Sometimes it gets that way, and we're out there until like 7:30. But
Oh my
it was
goodness.
really light work with all the volunteers that came through, and even for those who aren't physically capable of making it out there, any kind of financial donation that you can make goes to compensating the volunteers for the gas they spend. Because some volunteers come from Southwest and Beaverton all the way to Southeast and East County out in Gresham. So anything that you can contribute financially would definitely help.
Well, that's good because since they are volunteers, at least the gas alone. Because I know my friends Dax and her brother came up from Tualatin.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, Tualatin.
Tualatin. That's pretty far, but she
It
was
is.
determined. She's like, I really, really, really want to help. I really want to do something. And they're young, but she's also ill at the same time. But that just really energized her all over again to sit there and be able to do something else and to meet these families. So do you feel like you're developing relationships with some of these families as well too, other than you just giving them food?
Oh yeah, it's definitely intentional. With all the families that we visit, well, specifically the African American families and the immigrant families, we try to retain their information, and we usually send them, we introduce ourselves, we send them a text message or a phone call, and we send them a registration form so they can continue receiving services from us year round. So that's something we started about, I want to say, 2 months ago, but we've been delivering boxes for, I believe, 4 months. So a lot of the names that we collected, I've gone back there personally and knocked on the doors and made sure their phone numbers were correct, their address was correct, and we get their family size, figure out what languages they speak. So a lot of it is intentional relationship development with these families. We don't want to just do a one-off where here's a box, have a good day. We want to continue serving these people long-term and making sure that they never end up in the position they're in now.
What's going on? So what's happening with ICE? I mean, are they really prominent up here in Portland? Are they really going after a lot of people and finding them? Because I see the fear in some of their eyes. It's like, you know,
Yeah, a few years ago it was a lot bigger. It was a lot more noticeable than it is now. But I feel like a lot of immigrant and refugee families are still very fearful to the point that they oftentimes feel a lot of anxiety or seem to have a lot of tension when interacting with someone not of their culture or ethnic group. And then there's that language barrier. So a lot of times immigrant families don't feel too comfortable giving out their information. So I would, with seeing that and having that interaction with the folks that have limited English capabilities, I summed it up to that might very well be the reason why.
the besides the food boxes that you guys do, you also have some long-term goals and plans.
Yes.
What's that all about?
So with BCP, as I stated earlier, we have four main initiatives: economic development, wellness and nutrition, education and empowerment, and civic engagement. With our economic development program or initiative, we want to have multiple projects within that program, financial literacy classes or workshops throughout the year, every year, incentivized. So we want to educate the folks on why they're doing it and what's the benefit of having financial literacy, and at the same time help them identify their own goals and compensate them for achieving those goals, whether it's start up a retirement account or get a debt off your credit or a negative mark off your credit score, or your credit report, or put $500 in savings. Small goals that could build up to something greater. We're trying to build a scaffolding system so all these families that we've been interacting with over the last 5 months, they have reliable transportation, they have home ownership education, or have participated in a workshop. We've worked with different organizations that provide that kind of resource, and with everything that happened this year with COVID, we weren't able to offer that. But come 2021, with this scaffolding system we're trying to build with the healthy meals, financial literacy, hoping to help get them reliable transportation or help them obtain it. We also want to prep them to get into an IDA program, a match savings program, so that they would be ready to purchase a home within the next few years.
That would be good, yeah. Because I think like the African style was like everybody puts money into a kitty and then they turn it around and support each other to buy their own homes and stuff.
Yeah.
At least that's what happened in our... Yes, a susu.
Yeah.
Exactly, exactly.
Yes, and they still do that. There was another, there was actually a immigrant and refugee nonprofit called NAFTA. They're centered out of in Beaverton. I haven't heard from them in a while, but they were speaking on that, how they help one another pay for school loans, pay for housing, pay for medical expenses through their collective savings, and it works out for them. They obtain each other's information. I think they said they photocopy each other's ID, and you have to be referred, or someone has to recommend that you join in. It's a very there has to be a lot of trust when you're working with money, even if it's $10.
Right.
But
That's
it works.
true. What does Black Lives Matter mean to you? Like when people sit there and say that, and people are like waking up to the ideas of what's actually happening. It's like now people are actually noticing Black people, and they're listening to us. So what is it that you want like other people to know about Black people? How can they help other than because it's like, what are we doing past the protest? Once we do the protest, and now that we've got people's attention, what else do we actually need to do?
That's a good question. With Black Lives Matter, I think the beautiful part of it and the kind of bittersweet part is that the saying alone, no one should argue with that. But the fact that there has been such a huge backlash since Black Lives Matter has been a common phrase in America, the fact that there's been such a huge backlash shows how much further we need to go as far as progression as a nation. So I think that the movement has done a great job at highlighting a lot of the issues, but unfortunately some folks are, it seems that some folks are just riding the wave currently, and we really hope that's not the case, because some of the issues that you see today were the same issues that was going on 10 years ago and 20 years ago. And if folks aren't consistent and dedicated to this issue of police brutality and all the injustices that happen in the Black community, it's going to happen for another 10 years or another 20 years. So I'm really hoping that the folks that say Black Lives Matter show that they honestly feel like Black Lives Matter, with the way they raise their kids, with the people they hang around, with the way they spend their money, because there's plenty of Black businesses out in Portland, and they can't survive merely off the Black dollar. We need the community as a whole to acknowledge us and our businesses and our talents. So check out some of these Black businesses, check out what all these nonprofit organizations have to offer, especially Black Community of Portland. Financially contributing to us on a regular basis could go a lot further than you may think. We are hoping to build a sustainable platform for the folks that are out here doing the work, the volunteers. We don't currently have any staff, but if we had a full-time staff person or 3 full-time staff people, I can't imagine how far we would be able to take this organization, because right now we just do it off spare time. We bring our families. We bring our loved ones.
You working your child, man.
Oh yeah,
Child.
oh yeah. I told him in 10 years or 12 years, I'm gonna step down and you're gonna be running the show. It's like, okay,
That's
all
really
right.
good. That's really good. He's getting to work, and you know, because you're in the group, you know, so we have almost 16,000 people within the group. At least 6,000 people in that group are from Portland. Right? Exactly. So
Where
the
y'all
other
at?
10,000 people, exactly, where y'all at? So we got 6,000 people within the group that are in there that is for supporting and saying they believe that Black lives do matter. So if you believe that Black lives do matter, come and support this young man, you know, support his son, support the organization, support some of the other Black organizations and communities around here. There's so many different ways, you know, there's as far as our levels of protests and past the protests and everything else that we're doing. What else too is we were having this conversation with some of the other guys, and we're actually going to discuss that later too, is about the violence. You know, when we're dealing with, like, there's violence being thrown upon us, but how do we also retaliate or respond to violence that is being thrown at us, and how are we trying to get our message across to actually building a better Portland?
That is a really good question. I would say this ties into our civic engagement initiative that we haven't fully developed yet. It's kind of in the process of being developed through everything that's been happening in the world and our community locally. So earlier this year, Commissioner Hardesty and I spoke about different resources for Black youth, such as the first responders field, firefighting, paramedics, EMT, and she was starting to engage with the Black youth in regards to those career paths to help get them resources to achieve those kind of career goals. In addition to that, she was going to help introduce them to workshops where they talked about the local and federal government on a state level and a federal level. Because if we as a Black community don't know who's responsible for what, we don't really know who to be mad at. We don't know who to contact when we have concerns or we have needs and wants in our community. And as a whole, I don't really think the Black community knows what some of these positions, these government positions, are in charge of. So
They can actually, so she's trying to give them access to be able to work within the system. Okay.
she wants to. Me and her talked about it. This is, I want to say, towards the end of last year. She invited my students to come out to the city hall. We never made it, of course, because of COVID, but she feels the same way that the Black community could go a lot further if they knew more about the rules and regulations and who's in charge of what. In addition to that, in regards to civics and Black Lives Matter and all the violence that's been going on, legal aid is very important. It's very crucial to know who you could contact when you've experienced, violence from anyone, not just police officers, but from anyone, whether it's a hate crime or whether it's a hate crime or not. We, as the Black community, have a lot of our history with law enforcement is very jaded, and it's hard to trust them. And no one is excited to call the police or see a police officer. I still get sweaty when I'm too close to a police officer, and I'm almost 30 years old, so I can't imagine what
You're just a baby.
Oh, stop it!
Almost
Stop
30.
it! Oh, I should have said that. but yeah, it's rough because we don't really see a solution nearby. It's like if the media is not portraying what's going on, the world will never know. And unfortunately, we don't have enough dollars or a loud enough voice consistently to get the media to tell our story.
Right. So also, so now since we're actually in Portland, and so the whole city is not under fire or under the rioting and looting and things like that. Is there even any rioting really or looting?
Or is
it just really just clashes with the police?
The news plays things for views and clicks.
Okay.
If you drive down Portland, Right now it's really smoky, so don't drive down Portland. But
Right.
if you drive down
But I see the
Portland,
museums are open. You know,
yeah,
there's things open.
it's not it's not a ghost town. It's not, this isn't some poverty-stricken area. This is where Portland makes its money. It's one block, three at the most, that all of the chaos happens, and it happens for maybe 3 hours. With these nights when it gets really big, it may last a little bit longer, but it starts off peaceful. But in a large crowd of any group of people, whether it's the right side or the left side, you're gonna get a few knuckleheads that veer off from the mission. If the police officers and those who support the police officers have this ideology that one bad cop doesn't mean that they're all bad. They have to have the same ideology when they're looking at the protesters. Yeah, you may have a few that may riot, as they call it, or bust a few windows or set a dumpster on fire, but they haven't murdered anyone. They haven't set anyone on fire. They haven't, stabbed anyone. In regards to violence, a lot of, if anything, there's been spray painting and maybe a few windows busted and a few fires, but they have to also acknowledge why this is happening. It's not just these are just bad people. They're responding to an injustice. And though I wouldn't personally do that, I have a son to take care of. I'm not jeopardizing my freedom to,
That's all he needs is for you to be locked up in jail, and then
be
who's going to
another
take
one.
care of it, right?
So, I fight the power in a different way. And I promote it in a different way. I don't
You
want to
fight to empower.
Oh,
that's what I'm
yes.
seeing. You fight
Yes.
to empower.
Yes, I want to help get them the resources and the tools they need. It's bigger than just the 2 blocks that the protests or the demonstrations happen. It's so much bigger than that. Folks are, at the end of the night, folks are still hungry. Folks are still going without. Folks are still worrying about getting evicted.
Yeah.
Folks are still sitting in the jail cell for crimes they may not have committed. It runs so much deeper than those 2 blocks that the Justice Center is sitting on. And I think a lot of folks should, really take that into consideration when they go home to their families and, have them a nice hot meal in their safe neighborhood, in their, $1 million home out in whatever district this is, the Pearl District, I believe we're in, or the Hawthorne District, or, when they're out with their family and they're feeling safe and secure with what they have, after all after they leave downtown, take that into consideration that the struggle still goes on. You may go out protesting for 5 days straight. You may go out for 3 months straight. But there's still families out there, huge families, single parent households that have been going without for years. So 3 months of protesting ain't enough. This is a lifetime commitment. So if you truly believe that Black Lives Matter, this has to be a lifestyle. This has to be, secondhand nature. When you see someone of a different ethnic group, you don't cross the street. Make eye contact, say hello. It goes a long way. You may not see it right then and there, but when that person gets home, it's like, okay, that was different. That's how relationships get developed. So, yeah.
That's true. So I'm gonna interview that guy Travis, because you're the one who told me to. So he finally got back to me and
Travis
everything.
Nelson, he's a cool brother. He's a very, very intelligent brother, and
I saw that he was doing as well too, because they were trying to get something on the ballot as well too, because he was in support of what Commissioner Hardesty is about as well too. So also speaking with some of the other women, they're like they love her. What is it about her and her activism work, also working within the system as well too? Do you feel like there's also some kind of fight back also from the community? Because it's kind of hard. It's like when you have to sit down with the system in order to change the system, but it's hard to do that when it's really just you against the system, because there's definitely not enough Black people within city officials.
Yeah, I have a lot of respect for her, and granted, people are going to think what they think, but I have a lot of respect for her and the work that she's done. Even before she was a commissioner, she was doing work within the NAACP. As you know, she was the president of the Portland chapter. Me not being from Portland, when I first came here, Joanne Hardesty was a name that I heard a lot in regards to community development or outreach or, just community engagement, period. So I want to say say I'm 29 now, so I was 13, and I heard her name. I heard Noni Kazi with the Black Student Success Summit she leads. Teresa Rayford, I heard her name a lot when I first moved out here. And these are the folks that I admired, and I grew up thinking, wow, folks is doing work.
So they're
out
going to
here.
write in that woman's name on the ballot. So she's not on the ballot, but they're going to write her name in. Teresa Rayford.
Yep, she's
All
been
right.
doing the work. She is committed. She's, like I said before, when I was in middle school, or maybe it was high school, she was doing the work, you know, so no one could ever fault her for anything because she's had her boots on the ground for a while now, as well as a lot of other great people. Back to Commissioner Hardesty, she's been involved in a lot. I've seen her on numerous bases. She came and spoke at one of our community meetings, I want to say 2 years ago, when she was running against Loretta Smith. And she's another brilliant, awesome individual. She started this summer works program that helping high school students get jobs within the summertime.
Right.
And I was working in the school system when that came down, and I was able to connect students to that program, and I believe she spearheaded that. So
Well, that's good.
major props to her. Black women are doing the thing in Portland.
I'm telling you.
You know, I don't lost count. Yeah, Noni Kazi, Teresa Rayford, Loretta Smith, Commissioner Hardesty, and the list goes on.
Yeah.
Mama Joyce Harris.
It's the age of Aquarius. My husband says this all the time. It's the age of Aquarius. Women after 2012, it's like women are going to start leading, and you know, not just spiritually, politically, socially, economically. They're just going to just start rising to the top. It's time to take control.
Yeah, in all areas, you know, they've been putting in work. It's just, so whenever anyone asks, you know, or there's, you know, it's impossible to make every single person happy. So, of course, we all have our faults. With all the great people that we have in Portland, all of our great leaders,
Right.
they all have their faults. We're all human. So I think it's important for us to realize that and humble ourselves when we're trying to cast stones at someone else, and just remember that, you know,
Yeah, and just come together.
we're on the same team.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Black Lives Matter. It's like,
Yeah.
so let's just all come together.
Find
and
that
just
common
do-
ground that says, hey, you want to get folks off the streets, I want to get folks off the streets. You may want to go left, I may want to go right, but acknowledge that our primary objective is this, or whatever it is, you know. So I think it's very important that with all these, you know, the elders and the folks that's been putting in works, the Portland natives, the old heads, they come together and, you know, lead by example and show us younger cats how to work with one another and trust one another and forgive one another, because we can't expect the world to love us if we have a hard time showing that we love ourselves.
You have a really, really great attitude for not even being 30 yet. So that's just, it's just the peacefulness, the tolerance, the tactfulness, and also having a vision. You know, by having a vision and having a mission. You know, a lot of young brothers, their mission is not the same thing.
Yeah.
You know, we're understanding when we're dealing with young black men, that's a total different thing. So I think that the work that you're doing and being able to inspire the youth. So I'm really glad that I'm putting you guys together, because you and Jamal and Idris can really come together in helping and shaping our young brothers, you know, rising up and coming up and everything. So, and then with the women in the group, you guys can also help and support in changing the narrative of how they think of black men. You know, so something on the positive. So now that you set up your Patreon, that we've gotten that started, you guys can also donate, even if it's just $3 a month. You know, just do a monthly contribution of $3 a month. That will actually go a long way to help in the work that you guys are doing with the Black community of Portland.
Most definitely.
So,
Most definitely.
thank you, Chris. All
Thank
right,
you.
this is, we're on our mission. We're on a mission. We're on our way.
Find a good fight.
Yes, fight the good fight.